Welcome to Bay Focus. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm very excited about this week's show. In just a few minutes, you're going to meet a dear friend of mine and a friend of CTN, Jerry Kessie, who is an author and has a story to tell in his own life and how God is helping him through a time of challenge, but also of incredible creativity. He's a prolific author, and we're going to feature his books today called Holy Mackerel. Yes, it's got a little bit of humor to it, but some great spiritual truth, and you will find out about that in a few moments. But before we go there, we're going to introduce you to an organization called Crisis Connect, and that is exactly what they do. We're going to find out how that they manage people that are walking through crisis and giving them help that they need. And with us today is the founder of Crisis Connect, Dr. Terry Collier. And let me talk about you a little bit. He's the founder of Crisis Connect, community leader, professional mental health counselor, and he's executive director at Anona Family Life Counseling Center, which is affiliated with Anona United Methodist Church. Welcome, Terry. Welcome.
Great to be here.
If I've forgotten any other titles and accolades, we'll have to add them later. But I think
you did just fine.
You are well known in this area, but also you brought with you somebody else that our viewers are going to know. David Yates, we are so honored to have you. He is the CEO and board chairman of Crisis Connect. However, a lot of our viewers will also know him for 14 years, was the CEO of the Clearwater Marine Aquarium, overseeing production of the Dolphin Tale movies, Story of Winter the Dolphin. But also what our viewers may not know is you have a long history working with nonprofits, working with community needs as well. So welcome.
Thank you, glad to be here.
Yeah, it is. The hat you're wearing today is Crisis Connect, but you have done many things. You're a filmmaker still as well. But let's get right to Crisis Connect. And I want to mention too, Terry is not only the founder, but he works in community engagement and development of this organization. Terry, what is Crisis Connect?
Very good question.
Yes.
I can answer that by saying it started out with me personally 30-some years ago going through my own personal crisis. And I remember the greatest connection to help was through a Christian counselor that actually founded the network of Christian counselors in the Pinellas County area, Dr. Harold Waking. And through his mentor and counseling, I found a road to recovery. And out of that, I started my own counseling practice, went back to school, retrained, and for the last 30-some years, I've been trying to help people that are falling through the cracks in their own crisis.
Yeah, and you do this, and you in particular, because important is Dr. Terry Collier, so you're very, very well qualified. You do a lot of the one-on-one counseling, right?
Yes, that's what I've been doing primarily, but I've also been called into a lot of community crisis, with first responders, with veterans, the Iraq War. I happened to do a lot of my research back when after 9/11, and so I got a lot of experience with veterans coming home from combat, dealing with secondary trauma with spouses and families.
Okay, so wow, that's a wide variety of what you're doing. I'm going to throw it to you now, David.
Sure.
There are specific areas that Crisis Connect does, specific programs. Kind of detail those for us.
Yeah, when we get somebody's in a crisis, what we learn is if somebody's in a crisis, they're normally been there for a while, and they'll stay there for quite a while if we don't really help them on a long-term basis. We try and stabilize everybody we get. We work in mental health. If they have, whatever the crisis is, it can be a financial crisis, it can be a housing crisis, we get involved any way we can, and we stay involved. So we're very deep in how we involve somebody. We don't just kind of come and go in that regard. But mental health is always an issue of everybody who's in a crisis. So no matter what we do, whether it's financial help, somebody being evicted, we try and help out, whatever it is. Eventually mental health and counseling is part of that, and Terry oversees that. So counseling will always be part of everything we do. But we don't turn anybody away. So no matter what the crisis is, our goal is to either connect out if we can't help them directly, or help them directly ourselves, or both. And we have a lot of partners we work with. What we've learned is if somebody's in a crisis, they don't make good decisions. They have a hard time. They're kind of stuck in one day at a time. We try and stabilize them, give them a plan about here's where you are today, here's where you're going to get, and here's how we're going to help you get there and get stabilized. So our process is very deep. We don't just come and go. There's a lot of groups that do great work in crisis. Our goal is to stay with somebody for their entire life if we have to.
It's important.
And get them stabilized long term. Because if somebody's in a crisis and you give them a 30-day reprieve, well, 45 days later it's still there. So we try and put together a plan to help them whatever the crisis is. And we don't turn anybody away in that regard.
So and just as a an overview of everything you just said, this can be emergency assistance, short-term, long-term, crisis connections, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit more so about who your partner and how the partnership thing works. But detail for us a little. You guys were super involved in like hurricane. All the hurricanes we went through providing assistance. Give us some examples of how the type of things you've done to help.
I can give you one perfect example. I got a call in August from a friend of mine who owns a local company, air conditioning company. And she called me, she said, Terry, I had my key employee, 46 years old, had a heart attack and died. And he has a wife and 3 children. Can you go see her? So I went to see her and had a nice talk, and we supported and we helped. We were looking at Thanksgiving and Christmas. And she said, the first thing I need to do is, she says, I can't afford this place, so I need to downsize. She moved into a new location. 5 days after she moved in, Hurricane Helene hit. And she's in the house with her 3 children, and the floodwaters came in the house. They had to climb on their furniture, and she lost everything she owned.
Oh, my goodness.
So it went from being a personal loss of just a spouse and provider to now losing all your possessions. And so out of that, David and I went over, we met, we did an interview with her, but we provided support, and it has just kind of ricocheted into community involvement now over on the beaches, working with multiple families that have gone through devastation. Thousands of families, small businesses, restaurants, hospitality industry. I mean, there's just no end to it.
Even to this day, people think it's somewhat over. It's not over right now.
No.
So what happens is we, the work we do at Crisis Connect, if it was this big before the hurricanes, now it's this big. There's so many crises out there right now. Young, old. There are many people living in their homes on the floor right now, still in a tent in their backyard, living in their driveway in a camper because they haven't resolved their issues yet. So we try and sit down with anybody we work with and walk them through the whole crisis. How do we get from A to B and make it work? Here's the plan. But the crisis in our area is not getting less, it's getting more and more. And the problem you have is when somebody goes through a trauma of a hurricane, we know it's very predictable. We know what happens. That trauma doesn't go away. So if they don't deal with, we have a saying, if you don't deal with trauma, trauma will deal with you. So the big concern we have right now at Crisis Connect is we're trying to partner with the county and other parts of the community. How do we put together a campaign to reach all those, to let them know you've been through a trauma and here's how you can deal with this. So we're working on a campaign idea for that right now, because the trauma has already happened to tens of thousands of people. Like it will never happen. It's never happened before in this quantity and will never happen again.
Well, and you mentioned the key word here. You guys, obviously, Crisis Connect cannot do this alone. Explain how you're walking into like these hurricane situations or any other crisis that you guys manage and deal with. Partnerships are important. What do you connect them with resources? How does that work?
We talking about?
Well,
Rotary.
Again, I've been doing this for a long time personally, one-on-one, but I am a Rotarian. I've been a Rotarian for 37 years. It's probably one of the best service clubs in the world. In 200 countries, 1.4 million members. And whether it was the Ukrainian invasion, which we've been working with refugee families coming in, or whether it's a local disaster. I've been on so many disaster relief missions with Rotary, and they are so well connected. They're just one of dozens of organizations, great organizations, that all we need to do is collaborate. All we need to do is work together, bring our resources in. And even with this young lady I was telling you about, Rotary was a big help in supporting her through the holidays.
Yeah, we try to find groups that actually do, if let's say somebody needs whatever the need is, whether it's going to be they need food, for example. They need food for their kids. Maybe they're low on food. Maybe they're being evicted. Maybe they have a medical issue. So we try to find partners that will connect in those areas. And we have quite a few partners, churches. We have other nonprofits, other NGOs. Cities and counties. So we have a lot of partners we work with in a lot of different ways. So we'll manage the case, so to speak, but we'll partner out when we need to.
Yeah, that's really so important because it means you're going to sit down and get, like you said, you're going to do an assessment
Right.
to start with right away. Then you're going to be, in your mind and you're taking notes or whatever you're doing going, okay, this organization could help them here.
Right.
This group could help there. So if we've got people watching right now that say, I wonder if my organization or we could come alongside what Crisis Connect does, what would they need to do to get connected with you? What's the best way that they could help you?
Go to our website, mycrisisconnect.org. It's mycrisisconnect.org, and contact us there. We'd love to talk. And we have a strong group of partners right now, but we want to grow that as time goes on to bigger, even bigger and bigger. We want to have hundreds. Our goal is we have a saying, we're helping hundreds right now. We eventually want to help thousands because there's so many needs in our area. And kind of the hurricanes kind of brought a forgotten group of people right now because, for the first 2 months afterwards, we're all familiar with what's going on. It was top of mind, the media. Well, the media's kind of gone away right now, but the people still have the needs there. So we want to partner with anybody we can that's willing to sit down. We all have the same goal, which is to take people from a crisis to stabilization.
Okay, that's something we're going to put the contact information on the screen again when we're done. And then I want to throw to you, Dr. Collier, what if somebody's watching and they feel like they're in crisis? Like they're not keeping their head above water. They don't know what to do. What would you say to them?
Well, the first thing to do is contact us, call. And it's not like that we're going to be able to solve their problem right now, but sometimes just throwing a lifeline.
Yeah.
Having someone that they know is there on the other end. And because the crisis is, like David said, destabilization. When a life is totally blown up, if they are not connected to a resource in a matter of time, the chances of leaning into the area of danger, which is isolation and substance abuse and other kinds of abuse and self-harm.
And even suicide,
So suicide is a big one now. Mm-hmm. And so it's just making that first initial connection. And then if we can build a relationship or a connection, then we can start building an assessment and needs and giving hope. Hope is always the goal, to give a person hope, and then resilience, building resilience with them.
What we try and do is I'll give an example. There's a lady who was being evicted from home, 58 years old, widow, had living on a disability, and she's being evicted from her trailer, and we got involved with her. And what we tell them is, what people need to hear is, will somebody be there to help me? Yeah. Is there any hope? Because they're isolated they're by themselves. So we sit down with all of the people we work with, and we tell them, here's the deal. We're going to give you a plan. We're going to work with you. You're going to have to get involved, but we're going to give you a plan. And then we tell them something they rarely hear, which is, and we're going to be with you your entire life if you have another crisis. And when they hear that, the anxiety starts lowering. So they need to hear somebody's with me, and they're going to be with me. They've never heard that before. So we try and bring that.
I know we're going to have to end on that note. I love that. So basically, people that are watching today, pick up the phone. You have an email. Go to the website. Don't sit there in despair. This is a group that's going to come alongside.
That's exactly what the definition of counseling is, to come alongside.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know I was saying that. Well, that's great. But it's the truth. Thank you both so much for being on the show. And stay tuned. On the screen, you're going to see once again how you can contact Crisis Connect. And I hope you will, to either support them and come alongside as a partner, or if you need help yourself. Stay tuned. We have more of Bay Focus ahead.
We want to hear from you. Is there an event happening in the Tampa Bay area, or an organization helping the local community? If you have answers, let us know. Email us at darleneg@ctnonline.com. Find us online at ctnonline.com/bayfocus, or follow us on Facebook at Bayfocus TV.
Well, we're back, and I'm so excited about this next segment because we have one of my favorite people on the show, Jerry Kessie, who I've known for many, many years. And I'm going to introduce him in a second, but he has written a book series called Holy Mackerel, and we will talk about that in just a moment. You're seeing that on the screen. This is an incredible book series. It's going to give you a little different take on some of the stories and Jesus' stories with his disciples. But Jerry, I want to introduce him. He is the owner and founder of Floor Covering Technologies business, and that is flooring, carpeting, but he's also a consultant in the industry. And he is also an author. And we last had you on, Jerry. First of all, I want to say welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show. Great having you back.
Yeah, new set. Yeah.
You're a friend to my family, but also to CTN. CTN handles a lot. He does a lot of work here at CTN with our flooring. But we had you on last with your last book, which was called Fuzzy Side Up.
Yeah. Stories
from the field of when you go into homes and different things with carpet cleaning that were incredible stories and how God used you there. But this book series is a little different take, and you can tell by some of the cover art that this is a little bit of a look at the stories of Jesus, but also with some humor, and then with some life lessons at the end, and prayers you can do. But I want to read you an excerpt. And again, this is going to be a little different take. This was called, this is Sleeping Through the Storm. You remember the story of Jesus sleeping through the storm? And this first paragraph says, so we're out here on the Holy Mackerel, doing our usual disciple stuff, fishing, chatting, maybe debating whose sandals are the most stylish. Then bam, the sky opens up, wind howling, waves crashing, and suddenly our heavenly boat ride turns into the SS Minnow. And if we have time, I'll read you a little more of that. That gives you a first look at how Jerry goes into some of these biblical stories and gives a different flair for it. And Jerry, I want to ask you, right up front, what inspired you to do this, to really take on a little different, throwing humor in, and you're going into some of these stories with the disciples and Jesus is what these are, right? You chose that, and why did you do that?
Well, it was a early morning thought. Again, I usually get these early morning, and it's slightly ridiculous thought, but somewhat inspiring. That what if there was social media back then, and how would the disciples communicate the stories and the things that they saw in social media? And so I'm kind of thinking, okay, well, John would probably have a blog, or Thomas would have a blog saying, seriously, I have my doubts. And maybe Peter would have an emoji saying, water walker too. So we would have, so I think I wanted to show the humanity side, but somewhat humor. That these are real people just struggling, trying to get along life like we are.
And you bring the scriptural basis into when you talk about this, but you wrap it up to the retelling of that story or parable or whatever with the disciples, all from their perspective. Everything's from there. Yeah. You rotate the disciples around.
Right, yeah.
You rotate them around. But you also bring in a practical side to it. You want the reader to get something out of this.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of walk the tightrope between reverence and the ridiculous. So you don't want to laugh at the scripture, you want to laugh with the scripture. So there's funny moments, like I said, that will make them seem like they're real people too. That they weren't some superhero in the Bible, that they had flaws, they had issues. And if somebody can see that the scriptures, people in scripture relate to their life, maybe they can think that, well, maybe God can use me too. And if even one person feels that way and gets something out of it, then the whole holy fish story has kind of worked its way.
It's a holy fish story. Yeah. Well, I just have to throw this out there. There was one you go into in the scripture, where a donkey actually spoke.
Yeah.
And that's a funny story.
It is, yeah. And the funny part is that Balaam's donkey starts talking to him, but then, let alone that, he starts talking back to the donkey like it's just normal, like he's been taking night classes at Dr. Doolittle's school of talking with animals. And then there's Peter cuts off a guy's ear one time, like he's auditioning for Peter Pan the movie. And Jesus just picks up the ear, puts it back on, and says, "No, we're not doing that today."
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And it's like, so you see the mistakes that they make, and you think, yeah, so do I. I make mistakes too. I would fit right in. My story would be probably on first
Well,
page.
you know, with through the lens and with the hat on of trying to see some of the humor in some of these stories, along with the life lessons and comes, what would be the best reality TV show of biblical stories? Who would win the
no doubt
award?
it would be the Noah's Ark.
Noah's Ark.
Yeah, I mean, what else? I mean, nothing says reality TV drama more than living over a year on a boat with your in-laws in a floating zoo. And hey, you got cameras. Yolanda, I got an idea. Give me a call.
Yeah, you know Yolanda, our president. Yeah, that would be an interesting one. All right. One of the things we're going to show throughout this segment too is our viewers can get these books through something called the Inkwell. You're going to see that on the screen, where grace meets imagination. And there's a QR code that you can get these books and others of Jerry's as well. But Jerry, I want to transition now into our time. This is actually a little bit more of a serious side to what we're talking about. You've had a health journey in recent years, and these books have played a role in how you've managed it. But tell us about your journey.
Sure. 9 years from this October, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and it's been a slow-moving storm cloud, kind of, always there, but not really pouring yet, which I'm thankful for God for. I've certainly prayed, and I believe God could heal me. Will He heal me? I don't know. But the thing is, Darlene, is whether or not I get my healing, it doesn't mean that something inside one of these books would spark a healing in somebody else's life that reads it. God can use this to help other people through their own tragedy. And I just, there was never any real moment that I thought I was called to write a book, to become a writer. There was no burning bush moment that says, go forth and publish. Yeah. I feel that my journey is like the pile of stones that the Israelites, after they crossed the Jordan River, they wanted to make a monument of their journey so that future generations can see what God did for them. And so these books have become my pile of stones, that monument of mercy in my life.
I love that.
And so I figure what they embody, what they show is that my journey is something that's not been easy, but God has been there with me through the whole thing. And at the end, it's to say, I was here, and God wasn't finished with me yet.
Oh, wow. Okay, bringing tears to my eyes on that one. The books are something you're leaving as a legacy and to help others. All right, I want to, and again, this is a walking testimony, and those of you walking through health challenges, boy, this should encourage you. Jerry's not just sitting back and giving it. He's still active in his business. He's he's a prolific author. He is living every moment with God's help and God's grace. Is there anything on the horizon yet that you want to write? I'm throwing this.
Well, I don't know.
One to you.
At 4 o'clock in the morning, if I get an idea, I'll give you a call.
I can believe you will. Yeah. I have to tell a little story, and this is an unplanned story. But Jerry actually put these books on my doorstep. Actually did. in a box with not sure who it was from.
Right, yeah.
But when I opened it up, I knew. But it was so funny. I'm going, okay, well, let's just hope this is a friendly box of books. And I had all three books, which I have read, and they are so, they're entertaining, but they're poignant. They're in modern day language. They're in social media language. So who should get these, Jerry?
Well, I've talked to a lot of people, and they said that they read them to their kids. I think that maybe a good target market would be the teenagers that do a lot of social media writing and stuff. But yeah, it's just a project that I initially I just thought, well, just kind of a cute little idea, but people liked them and turned into books, and so here we are.
I think these would be tremendous for young people, for teens, but even I have to tell you, for all ages. He had me smiling, laughing, ways he interpreted some of these stories and parables.
Yeah.
But the interaction with the disciples, like these are from their perspective, as if it was today, as if they were encountering this today, was really, really entertaining, but also the life lessons at the end were really good. Okay, so tell us a little bit about, and we're closing, we're finishing up here, Jerry. They can get the books again. Tell us a little bit about this inkwell. What's there?
Yeah, it's kind of a name I came up with for my books, but there's a QR code that takes you right straight to a Google form. And if they don't really want to go through all that, there's my phone numbers on the front page of that, and an email address. So we make it easy. We're not complicated. It's just,
no, that's an easy way to get it in. We've seen throughout this segment too, you had some really great artwork and things you did for the books that are just add to the entertainment factor of it. So really great. Thank you, Jerry, so much for coming, sharing your story.
Yes.
Your personal story too. Thank you for coming on. And I want to encourage you, we're going to put again this QR code in the inkwell information where you can get Jerry's books. And this is just such a fun and creative way to share biblical truth. I hope you will get them, and we will be right back with more of Bay Focus. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. I hope you'll get on board and connect with Crisis Connect. What a great organization that is, just meeting the needs here locally of so many families. And then also that you'll get the book series, Holy Mackerel, from author Jerry Kessie. It's so great having him on the show today. But I would like you to contact me as well. I want to hear from you, what's going on here in the Tampa Bay area. If you have an organization or ministry you think we should highlight, let me know. We'll see you next week. God bless you.